All right. Well, great evening to everyone. We're here to talk about case study number one. I guess we wanted to do some brief introductions of the team.
I am Megan.
How you doing, Megan? I'm Thomas.
And I'm Wanda. Thank you, guys. All right. With this meeting that we're having, we're have an opportunity to kind of look at an actual scenario of a case study. So our goal here prior to this, we was to share our written responses from the case study that everybody has already written. And each person will have a chance to share their responses for each question before moving to the next question. So that's how we'll move and proceed. So, so just to kind of give a brief overview of this case study, number one, which is the principal as the instructional leader. Kind of started out, kind of reminded me of my first couple of days when I started some schools. You know, you kind of get it, some of those tough schools, tough situations, where it's just morale is down, things are just difficult on all parts. And so I guess this particular gentleman here, James, get an opportunity. He's made a good, impression in the classroom and really with the parents and the teachers and with the students. And so he's getting an opportunity to get thrown into the principal role. So he have a couple of issues that he has to address. Definitely his boss has brought some particular specific problems to him about some challenges because he's been at this school for about 17 years. So he got a lot of close relationships and people he know. But then also too, they make a note that they want him to resolve the low reading scores for his school. And so I guess we'll be sharing this evening about how James handled this situation. How did he handle it? So I guess our rotation, I guess it'll be Megan and then Thomas and myself. So our first question was, what do you think of the way James handled this particular situation, considering his limited background?
So I thought that he recognized that he didn't have all the answers. So he was upfront and honest with the staff, letting them know the needs of the school. Connecting it back to the text that we've been reading, it talks about like creating a shared vision. And so I feel like bringing the teachers in and saying, this is the problem, it fostered that sense of empowerment, like, help me out, guys. We're a team kind of conversation. So, yeah.
Megan, I agree with you. The mere fact that he was open and honest about where he lacked in knowledge, and looking for those resources as like the district reading coach to help him out, but also talk about his leadership style. Sort of like we did like our reading, you had like transactional managerial style and you had the transformational style. And he's going more that transformational style of collaboration. What can I do? How can we together, we have to raise our scores together. There's only one thing that kind of got me was he's having the reading coach lead his PLs instead of him taking that initiative and allowing that reading coach to support him. So he is taking a little more of that leadership role, taking a little more. It's like, because I guess like how they worded, you're invited to come. Well, no, he needs to lead that PL with the support of the reading coach. I'd rather him take a little more of that of a step approach to it. But he's also just having those crucial conversations. He's like, how would you want me to address you when I have to, because we've been friends for so long, if I have to address you, how do you want that to happen? And I think that's fair, especially when you start having crucial conversations.
That's right.
With peers that you've been friends with. So
that's right. So true. So true. And I really, I kind of feel the same way, Thomas. As I was reading, I kind of read it and I kind of stepped back from it and I went back to it again. And so what stuck out to me is that it states that James has administrative assistance. He has supervision and administrative certification. So he has been through the work of what it takes to be an administrator. So he understands at some point, I mean, they say he's limited background, but that kind of stuck out. And I was wondering a little why they stated it was limited, maybe because maybe he never got a full opportunity to perform that role, but he definitely had a general foundation. And so I felt that from that foundation that he still kind of learned in his education, the model, and like you said, the things that we read about, even in our experience with the APSL, you know, just in general, starting a PLC, you know, putting key things in place, just the whole, like you say, you know, him taking the lead and saying, okay, let's kind of go at this the right way. Yeah, I may not be as confident or whatever, but like you said, as a leader, that he steps up and still kind of let everybody know, okay, I got this, you know, we're going to work together as a team, but this is the order we're going to take it in. These are the steps that we're going to address. And so, you know, and even in him having some limited experience initially, I just felt that he could have been a little bit more stronger in just focusing on just getting the temperature of his school. And like you said, even as we're learning to switch from the classroom or the office to the principal role, switching that mindset, switching that perspective. And I think, you know, giving himself that opportunity to actually, you know, do the research, spend some time, you know, interviewing his staff and knowing what he has, it probably would have gave him a lot more confidence in taking that leadership role. But, you know, I was just kind of just brewing over a lot of things as it kind of stuck. Initially, when I read it, it didn't stick out as obvious, but I was like, he has some type of training, some type of supervising, you know, where he's been supervising. But yeah, those are some good points. Is there anything else anybody wanted to share as you hear the responses about question 1? And I know it's a broad statement, right? How did he handle it? Yeah, he did a lot of stuff in that one. All right. Let me see, can I move this? All right. Okay, well, we can go on to question 2. So question 2 talks about what more could be done to help the reading scores in the school.
I would like to have seen them look at the data just a little bit more, because when you talk about reading, there is a really large component of it. You know, what part of the reading scores are not good? And then maybe forming some PLCs based on that data, and then, you know, how are they going to track the student learning as they start giving them strategies to help their reading. And then I thought maybe he could create some time for teachers to observe each other. So maybe one teacher teaches this part of reading really well, and so send a teacher over there to observe that and then bring it back to their own classroom. So just seeing some more of that collaboration.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I thought about this question, I thought about really the APSL, because that's one of the things I addressed in APSL was that reading part. And for me, it was, when I thought about it, I was like, well, sort of like what we just did, like form that PLC, do that data dive, look at resources, think about different assessments, how we're going to, like Megan, you mentioned, how are we going to monitor the kids? But not only that, how are we going to monitor the teachers?
Absolutely.
Scheduling walkthroughs, checking lesson plans. And then also, since you have a reading coach, have that reading coach actually walk into the classroom with the teacher. To be that if the teacher's struggling, you can have somebody come in. It's sort of like if I come in district office to a classroom, a lot of times I'm modeling for the teacher what they should probably help them in the classroom. But I think for me, it was just start looking at different tools, not just on an online coach. You got online tools that we just did in APSL. There's so many tools out there, but Megan, you said it right on the head. There's so much to
It's so
reading.
broad.
There's so much. It's so broad. It's like, is it phonics? Is it comprehension? Is it, so it's what you can't, you got to attack it at one point, and just, it was so broad. I would like to know more exactly what they're trying to achieve. Like where's the lack at? So
Right,
just a
right.
little more information would have been helpful for him to figure out his best needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I was thinking the same thing as I was reading it. I was like, God, we don't have any numbers. Like I can't really say if his approach was adequate or not. And like you said, I thought straight back to the APSL again. Even just us going through the APSL, that was just some good training for us. So I think even no matter where we land in our, in our next step, we're going to think about that APSL, and we're going to think about, okay, first thing I need to do is I got to research, what is causing the root, what's the root cause of the low scores? And like you said, even more important, it's so broad, where is it? How can we get the data, from the students that are in front of us? What are some pre-tests that we can do? What are some things that we can determine? And even I'm amazed that the coach never talked about looking at previous data from the students. They never referred to, hey, let's go back and look at how the kids have, and let's break down if it's the report card or the EVAS. But let's look at the root cause of what is impacting these scores, and this, and looking at some best practices of what we can do. Now they mentioned about, they went to a conference, and I was like, okay. And it was like, okay, they bought materials, they did all this stuff, but again, nothing was concrete, nothing was set in stone as far as, okay, how are we actually going to address reading, what part of reading, and how are we going to apply that to the best practices that we do know that are available. And maybe, like you said, they didn't talk about the technology that was available to the students, if they had access to technology. And I guess we can kind of talk a lot more about that. But yeah, it was a lot of things. And I thought about you, Thomas, because I was like, Thomas did reading. I was like, okay, because I know mine was math. And I was like, I know he's probably thinking, oh man, it's a lot of things that he could have done, because I know you probably noticed a lot of that in your research as well. Y'all had anything else y'all wanted to add to question 2? What more could they do to help with the reading scores in the school?
I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, well, question 3, it says, what additional resources could James utilize to help the school improve?
So I was thinking, I don't know if it would be a resource or like a strategy, but set a goal. So we don't, there was no goal in here. So what are we trying to achieve? Like, what direction are we all, marching to? So I thought that maybe at a goal, he could possibly turn to some other principals for some advice.
Absolutely.
What they're doing in their school, some like response to intervention plans, MTSS kind of thing, but that would mean looking at the data that we don't have. But there might be some students that are just purely struggling that need some of those interventions. So that might be something else that he could take a look at.
Yeah, that's great. That's good.
That's awesome. It's funny you said that. She started talking back, I started laughing. Like, you can tell we all went through the APSL and we got the kind of similar mindset. I said the exact same thing, is looking at other schools that might have the similar scores and how they improved, that they did improve. I mean, I know principals, at least in my district, they have PLCs and they meet all the time. And I mean, that's a real good resource. Somebody has more experience than you, who's probably been into a tough school as well, getting resources from them. But I also think putting back on the schools, having that goal, but sort of like how we developed the PLC to attack their most pressing need, but we also built an action plan, something concrete, something that they can see, each person can see, and you have that goal.
Yeah.
And like you said, Megan, not having a goal and just shooting out in the dark doesn't help.
Right.
People like to see that end number, like
Right.
raise it by 6 points or whatever
Right,
proficiency
right.
rate's going to be. And not having that was kind of like, so if I was a teacher, I'm going, but what's my goal? I
Right.
understand that's my score, but what are we do we want to show growth? Are we trying to reach a certain proficiency level?
Right.
Because those are two different things. You know, you might not reach your proficiency, but you can show growth.
Right.
So it's just kind of figure out, get more of a collaborative work within the school, and then have that coach come in. Hey, here's our action plan. What do you think? Anything we may need to tweak, so forth and so on, so teachers can take a little ownership with the principal on the plan.
That's right. So true. Yeah, that's so true. And I agree totally with you guys. So, you know, just like you said, my mind went back to the app. So, you know, I just thought about, you know, having that vision, that statement, and the action plan makes it so clear because it gives specific goals. Like with his teachers, it was almost like, oh, we just all just going to help in and just support you, and we're going to do this. And like you said, everybody's going to do what?
Yeah.
What is everybody tasked? So they never really specifically assign actions for specific teachers. They didn't identify the roles. Because like you said, there was no formal team defined. It was just everybody doing a lot of great things. And yeah, it's okay if your staff likes you and things of that nature. But like you said, him stepping in as a leader and just saying, hey, I'm holding you all more accountable with this particular action plan item. And this is what I want y'all to do, how I want y'all to execute. First, to telling them how you want them to execute, because it was odd. It was like, oh, well, just come in our classroom and we'll just show you what we're doing. And if we just need to tweak some things, we will. But like you say, you know, making sure everybody's doing the same thing, defining the what and how everybody's going to execute. And then, like you said, also to having that SMART goal. What are we trying to achieve? And so I was almost thinking about just all the different things of, you know, again, going back to the research and all of the things that they could have done. You know, he probably could have pulled more from his coach, you know, about the best practices, because that's her area, her specialty. You know, maybe holding her a lot more accountable to lead and to help the teachers, as well as, like you said, having the teachers to be more accountable. But like you said, if everybody had that number, and like you say, you know, what area are we trying to build, proficiency or growth, or, you know, how we want to impact it, it would have just helped us a whole lot to kind of know more of that. It would have helped us. All right. And question 4 is the last one. It says, what could he be sacrificing, if anything, by placing an extraordinary emphasis on the reading program?
So I kind of struggled with this one because reading is, you know, the foundation. So if you struggle in reading, you're going to struggle in math and struggle in science and social studies and on down the road. So I don't know that he's sacrificing anything for just 1 year. I do think that he needs to give the staff some goals and the whole picture, and, you know, so they know specifically like what they're focusing on, or it could just be a free-for-all, just teach them reading and be done with it. And I don't think that would make any progress either. So I don't know that he's sacrificing anything, but I think he does need to be a little bit more clear in his direction.
I agree. And I kind of struggled for a little bit being in, like, when I was in this classroom where we had a certain intervention, other areas had a tendency to drop a little bit because so much emphasis was put on it. But I know one thing my principal did at the time, when he started to see the numbers starting to slide, he made sure he told the other subject areas the importance of why we are attacking this,
Mm,
to build that capacity. Because a lot of times, and this is like the middle school level, you know, they're worried about teaching their content on math. I'm not worried about this, that, or the other, you know, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I know we have this extra 30 minutes and you're going to do this reading thing or common lit or whatever. And they're like, I don't teach reading. I need to
Yeah.
get to my math. I want to teach this. So just helping teachers to see that whole, to get that balance. Because I mean, I think it's just, if you balance everything out to a certain degree with interventions to help whatever you're lacking, you can get that balance so the whole school is well-rounded and in each subject feels a part of it. Because I've seen it, and it's amazing how they're like, well, that's not my area. It's like, no, well,
Right.
our goal is to help all the kids. It's just not just math or just science.
Right.
So I think, like you said, Meg, is just explain it all, but you give that overall, like, guys, if they can read, it's going to improve your math scores. It's going to improve your history. It's going to improve your science, because, like you said, reading is that foundation that they need. If they can't read a question or a problem in math, they're not going to solve the equation,
Absolutely.
regardless.
Absolutely.
So, and I agree with you. It was so difficult. So I'm like, and I think it's more just getting the teachers buy-in who are not reading teachers.
Yeah.
I think that would be the hardest part. It's like, hey, I need you to buy in on this.
Right.
And
That's
just,
a good point.
yeah, if he doesn't do that, if they don't do it with fidelity, it's not going to help.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I
That's-
think go ahead, Megan. You have something
No,
to say?
that's a good point. Really good.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing, you know, when I saw the word sacrificing, but I was just so, like you said, thinking about all the other things that he was not doing. And I thought to myself, God, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure he is sacrificing some things because he don't know a lot of core things in his school. So he don't really, you know how to properly lead his teams and to define those goals. And so I felt just like you all did, because he's kind of making that such an emphasis. Everybody else can kind of say, hey, we got a new principal, we can relax. Oh, he's not talking about our area, he's talking about y'all area. Y'all got to do some work. So sometimes you may have that mindset, because like you said, the teachers are already overworked, they're already, you know, their morale is down. So they're probably like, you know, okay, well, all right, he don't really care much about our area. So, you know, it could impact, you know, just his relationships with the other departments. You know, just like you said, them even caring to even try to implement anything to improve or sustain while they are doing the reading. You know, and maybe even them feeling so left out, they're not even willing to kind of provide some suggestions or some recommendations. You know, it's just the reading department, that's how everybody feels. But I kind of felt that he would be sacrificing, to me, you know, more of the other departments, but, you know, not making it feel like it's a school goal. Because again, he didn't make it, you know, a school-wide goal. Like at our school, our principal has one school-wide goal for everybody, and we are all held to implement that in our content. So although we are having some improvements in our math, but we're all focused on reading literacy and comprehension. So everybody is intentional about improving reading across the board. And so he's not really holding those other departments and other areas and contents accountable. So I just feel like he may find himself working even harder, even once he gets those scores moving in the right direction for the reading. Then he's gonna be doing the same thing for math and all over the place, because everything else is gonna be falling apart.
That is a good point too.
Everything will be
Like he
falling apart.
probably could get in there and really see what's going on versus hitting the ground running, you know, and what direction. So yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And I'm sure you all know, probably once we step into this administrative role, this is probably going to be what it's going to look like. You know, sometimes you be thinking, oh, everything's gonna be wonderful, it's gonna be
Mhm.
perfect. We're not gonna, we're not gonna have no pressure right off from
Mhm.
our boss. We're gonna just step right in and just be a principal. But I was
Mhm.
thinking to myself, okay. And that's why I was probably analyzing James a little bit more, because I felt, God, that's probably gonna be me one day, having to make those decisions, and people looking to you to be leaders and looking to you to implement those best practices and that research, and bringing that freshness to the school. So I just kind of saw myself like, wow, it's probably going to be me in these shoes of stepping into a tough situation, a tough situation, and having to kind of be James one day and kind of get through it. So yeah, most definite. Well, all right, guys, is anything else y'all want to share overall, or any other additional feedback or comments or questions? Maybe something else you saw inside the scenario that they didn't ask us about? Anything else? Oh, I know it was other thing that I noticed too at the end. It mentioned over the next few years, the reading scores began to improve. And again, we don't really know how they improved, what they measured, what they did. But I was thinking to myself, I was like, well, obviously it's 2 years later, so the students who used to be in front of them is not. And I was trying to figure out, like, why in the world. But I guess, for him, he just wanted that small win, just that small win, just trying to get that. All right. Y'all have anything else to share for this evening before we end the call? I really appreciate y'all feedback as always. Thank y'all so very much. Thank y'all for hanging in there with me as teammates. I know it hadn't been easy all the time, but I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate your feedback, and thank y'all so much. I think seeing you guys and seeing y'all name pop up all the time, that gives me encouragement to hang in there, keep pressing, and we're going to finish this together. So I really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely, and I appreciate your comments. And when you send that group text out, I'm like, you're like, pray everything's well. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like, I so needed that right now. Thank you. Because like I told you, just trying to balance between our normal jobs, research, writing papers, this and the other, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I don't know how to do it. And all of a sudden you'll send a text out. I'm like, okay, you got this.
Got
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Or after a class meeting, you get the big eyes, and I'm like, yeah, that was a lot.
That was a lot. Exactly.
I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
But I really appreciate you guys, and y'all have an
Absolutely.
amazing weekend.
You
So
too.
try to
You
get
too.
some rest this weekend, because y'all know Apptail is just around the corner.
I know.
It is.
All right.
All right.
All
Thanks
right.
for